All right, cool. So today we're going to talk about mapping a legendary sales process. And when I say legendary, I mean, you want something to be rock solid, that's amazing, that will help you build and grow your business for years to come. Something that will evolve, but we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what's your client's journey, why people don't stop and do this, and why it's beneficial for you to do go through this process that we're going to talk about today. It prevents you from getting lost and overwhelmed. And then we're talking about some best practices and then mapping your sales process. Okay. So everybody's client, every single buyer and seller in the market goes through a process. They might start searching online. They're talking to a friend about moving. Whatever that first thing happens in their life, they start going through this process of buying or selling. They get pregnant. They're going to have a baby. They need a bigger home. Someone passes away. They get a job change. They get tired of the snow. They want to move to Florida, right? Whatever. Something happens that triggers that. And step one, usually in this process, is they start looking online. Oh, cool. I'm checking out this place. They're talking about with their spouse or whatever. They start talking to a friend. Oh yeah, I'm thinking about moving. Everybody's moving over there. It's lower taxes, lower this, and warmer weather and blah, blah, blah. This is a process everybody goes through in some shape or form, right? Then they start, I'm gonna get some alerts on Zillow or Redfin or EXP or my favorite home property site that popped up in my feed on social media. Maybe they click and they fill out a home evaluation. Then they start talking to a lender. Oh yeah, we really want to get hopefully they go through this. Some of you guys are like, they never talk to a lender at this stage. They wait till after they've seen 10 homes, right? But then they maybe talk to an agent. They're like, oh yeah, what should we do? What do we got to do next? They're kind of get stuck. They're obviously Googling and throughout this whole process. Then they start looking at homes. Then they sign a listing agreement. Then they sign maybe a buyer contract if you're going to be savvy and do that. And then they write some offers. They get in contract, they close, they move, right? That is a process everybody goes through in some shape or form, whether they realize it or not, or whether you realize it or not. They're going through a process. Okay. So today, when we talk about mapping your process, how do you manage each stage of the process where people are going through this? How do you interject yourself? How do you handle the conversation at each step and each stage that they're at? What emails do you send them? What vendors are you talking to and getting involved? What is your process, your sales process for working with someone from A to Z? Now, most of the time, this is never mapped out. We just kind of like, oh, I guess I probably should follow up with that person now. But if we stop and we really document this and we think it through, we're going to get more sales. We're going to have more closings. We're going to be able to help more people. We're going to grow a better business. We're going to have a bigger database. It's going to be good for us all around and good for our clients. So the agents and the teams that dominate, they've figured out their process and they've turned it into a machine. They know if we spend a lot of our time pumping in leads, we market and we prospect daily, and then we convert and deliver as we promised. We just have a machine of a business. They've mapped their sales process so smoothly and they just do the same things every single week, and their business is growing and growing and growing. Again, this is what's done behind the scenes. This is what's done on your 2 weeks break when you don't got a lot going on. You stop and think about this and you write it down, you map it out. And the people that do this, they're doing a huge volume of business in any industry. This is not just real estate. This is any business that does this, really transforms their business. They've looked at, hey, when someone is first they're a suspect, or there's someone that knows you, then they like you, they become a prospect, then they become a lead, and you've captured their information, and then you start following up with them, and then you convert them and they become a customer. This happens in every single industry. I don't care if it's on Amazon. I don't care if it's, at the flower shop, any business. This is a process that people go through, but a lot of times we get stuck and we don't know how to handle people and how to manage our own business and our own self at each stage in the process. And this is just one stage of that process, which is contract to close. There's 180 steps. When people ever doubt, like, oh, what do you guys really do? Well, there's 180 steps. I'll have you know, that's what we're doing. Behind the scenes, we're talking to the lender. Behind the scenes, we're talking to the attorney, and behind the scenes, we're talking to the inspector. There's a lot of stuff going on, right? And so it's easy to get overwhelmed because this is just one step in that process. If we don't map out the journey that one of our buyers or sellers goes through, we're going to get overwhelmed. We're going to get lost. And I'm like, okay, did I order inspections? I forgot. This is just we're in contract stage. What do we do when we're trying to get a contract signed by them? Right. So, and I'm not saying over the next week, you need to map out like your 200 step process. I want you to think through it. Right. I don't want you to get overwhelmed going through the process, but it's good. It's healthy to stop and think of it. This is a real business. And if someone's going to go through these 180 steps working with you as a client, what is it like before they actually sign the contract? How do you help them get on this journey so you have more deals and more people going through this process? Is this resonating with anybody? Like it can get overwhelming, right? There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of moving parts. They say that there's 28 people on average that are involved in a real estate transaction. That's a lot of management. There's a lot of steps. There's a lot of processes, a lot of things going on. If we don't stop and breathe and like document what our process is, like who is your inspector? How do you talk to them? Do you send them an email? Like that one little thing can save you a lot of headache down the road because you can do it the same every single time. Okay. So that's kind of what we want to talk about today. What is your client's journey? How does someone work with you on their journey to becoming a client and a raving fan of yours, where they will work with you and refer business to you, right? How do you talk to them at each stage? Okay. When they're a suspect, are you prospecting on the phone? Do you do ads? Do you do mailers? How are you getting their attention? How do you capture them then as a prospect and a lead to follow up on? How do you get to have an appointment with them, schedule? What do you do? What is your process? Right? Because I can tell you what mine is, Steve can tell you what his is, but you're gonna have your own way of working with people and helping them through this journey. That should be documented. That should be nailed down. So, and the reason why is this so important? Someone's probably thinking like, yeah, okay, yeah, I've heard all this stuff before. Sales funnel, we need to have a process and system, and I've heard all that. Well, the reason why this is important is because you can really quickly tell where are the weak points in your business and what do you need to work on? Like, what should you work on next year? Well, take a look at your business. If you have a lot of leads and you don't have you have very, very few appointments, you hardly ever get an appointment, that tells you what part of the stage, what process you need to work on. You need to work on your lead conversion, like converting a lead to an appointment, right? So maybe you should stop and document, how can I win people over more, right? So maybe I should send them an extra 5 follow-up emails and text messages. Like that's a leak in your sales process where leads are going away, and they're going to go away, right? We're not going to win all of them. As amazing as everybody is, you guys are all amazing. As amazing you are, people are still going to leave. A bulk of people are going to they're window shoppers. They're just going to walk in and walk out. But knowing this it reveals a lot about your business, right? If you have a lot of appointments, but you're not getting any contracts signed, that tells you need to work on your presentation skills. You need to work on handling objections. So that stage of the process should be a lot of your focus. And what are you doing in that process that's maybe missing? What are you doing that's winning, right? These also tell you where you're winning. Like, hey, I'm doing really great. My presentation skills are strong and I'm able to, but then all of a sudden I get deals and I can't get them closed. So then that tells you like your far back end systems of working with inspectors and managing your vendors, and maybe talking your relationship with your lenders is not very good, right? There's something that's going to be revealed throughout your entire sales process at each stage. Okay. Is this helpful? Is this making sense to anybody? like why we want to make sure we document our flow and our process. Okay. So for each stage of your sales process or your funnel, some people call it a funnel because it's funneling people down to a specific action. Okay. From a cold prospect to down to a customer, right? It's funneling. That's what it means by a funnel. You're funneling them down. There's fewer at the bottom than at the top. What needs to be done at each stage? Okay. When someone is a prospect, what should you be doing? What's going on in your business? Are you manually typing them into a certain CRM? Maybe if you're using KV Core, do you have to manually do that? Do you, would I send them a checklist or send them a PDF of what it's like to work with me? Or I send them my pre-listing package. Like, what is going on? What needs to happen? Do you have that documented? What happens when they're at stage X? Okay. Now, the nice thing is KV Core and CRM tools help you with this process. They kind of already have filters, but you still have to kind of think through what is my definition of a prospect? What is my definition of a new lead? What is your definition of an active lead? What is your definition of a client? Right? It's different. Some people are like, oh, a new lead is an active lead for me. Okay. Right. So define that. Right. So define, when does someone go through the stages inside my business, and how do they get to that next stage? Do they sign a contract? Does this contract get submitted to the broker? Like, when does that happen? How does it happen? Document that for yourself, again, because it could be different. Some people are like, I just shoot it off to my assistant or my virtual assistant, or I do it myself, or I have a transaction coordinator do it, or I do it once I get back to the office and I make a photocopy of it and I scan it. Like, document each one of these things. And this is the time to do it. This is the time of year to stop and think through what is the process people go through to get through these stages, right? Because I've been lost. I'm gonna admit, I don't have this all down. Sometimes I'm like, well, are they active lead or new lead? I need to define an active lead as somebody that has agreed to work with me verbally, right? I don't know. Like, what is your definition? Is an active lead someone that replied to an email and says, when can we meet to look at properties? Right? So KV Core will help you filter through this and decide, hey, I'm going to put people in buckets. And then you just need to come up with, what are your stages, right? Again, this is in KV Core. If you go to dashboard and you click on my business, it'll tell you how many people you have as contacts, how many are prospects or a sphere, how many people are new lead, how many people are active lead, how many people are a client. Okay. So we want to move people through this sales process, but if we don't really have a clear process, it could be like this. Like, I didn't have this nailed down very good. So there's 780 new leads. That should not be the case. So I got to move some of these people into the active leads or trash them or whatever. Or they're not really leads. Okay. So KV Core helps you kind of even working at each stage, like a new lead. They have an entire campaign inside of KV Core to help you work through and convert and message these people that are new leads. Okay. So you don't have to come up with everything from scratch. Like, what do I do when someone's at a new lead stage? There's actually a campaign designed for sellers. There's another one for buyers. Hey, send them an email for this, send them a text message, this, and you can automate some of that, right? It's not 100% automated. You got to be involved a little bit, but they help you. They look and say, hey, we have 200,000 agents on our platform. What are they doing? What are they sending? When are they sending it? And so this process, this is one step in that process of a new lead. We send them these messages. Okay. So take some time and go through these, read these messages. Do I like what it says? Do I want to change some of that? Okay. So this is found in the marketing section under marketing smart campaigns. You can click, there's tons of different pre-made templates, but edit those. Maybe you're like, I don't like this process. I don't like this flow. That's fine. You can delete it. You can change it. You don't have to even use KV Core. You can use a spreadsheet. You can use another CRM tool, but you want to know what is my flow. This is a good way to start if you don't have a process nailed down. If you're like lost, like many of us and many agents have been like, I don't know when they should become, when should I note them as a client? Is it when they sign the contract? Is it when we got an offer accepted? I don't know. Right. Okay. So if you don't map your sales process, it's not going to affect the buyers and the sellers in the market, because they're still going to go through this process. The process we mentioned in the beginning, where they're like talking and then they start searching, then they opt into something and they start getting alerts and then they talk to a lender. They're still going to go through that process. They're just going to go through it with someone else. If you don't have it documented, you're going to lose a lot of business. So hopefully I can kind of encourage and provoke you to like really say, man, I need to map out my flow. What is my business flow from start to scratch, from start to finish, from A to Z? How am I working with people? How am I managing myself? How am I managing my system? What is my flow? What is my funnel? What is my process? Okay. So they're going to still go through this process, regardless of you. You just want to know, hey, I know how to interject into the middle of that process that they're in. I know how to get the attention of somebody because I'm putting out content, or I'm making calls, or I'm paying for ads, or I'm whatever you're doing, right? I'm door knocking. I know how to get into the middle of that process and submit them, get them subscribe to my flow, to your process. You want them going through the process with you, right? I mean, that's what we're doing here, right? This is all about the sales, and we want them in our sales process, not the big market dominator down the street. Okay, so I got a couple of takeaways for you guys. Okay, so these are the next steps. What can you be doing in the next week or 2 weeks? And take your time with it. Don't get rushed, because you don't want to get overwhelmed. You really want to think this through. Write down the journey that clients go through from A to Z when they're working with you, right? Because when they work with you versus another agent, there's going to be some things that are different, right? Maybe you have a certain vendor that you use. Maybe you're a little more hands-on. Maybe you don't have a VA or an admin at this point, and so you're a lot more involved. Document that so you don't go crazy, right? Write it on a spreadsheet or a whiteboard, or use the CRM like KV Core. So what tools, next is what tools, resources, scripts, vendors do you need at each stage? Make sure you have those. Do you have their phone numbers all laid out so that when you do have an assistant or a VA or somebody, you can pass it on and say, here's all this, here's what we do when they're a new lead. I put them in KV Core and I assign them to this follow-up sequence. Boop. All right, that's what I do. It takes 5 minutes, hand that off to someone, or just document it for yourself. And the best way to actually do this, get yourself set up so that when you do have some type of assistant, is to document it for yourself. And it'll keep you sane. Trust me. Next is decide on your rules for KV Core or your system. Again, it doesn't have to be, if you're using some other CRM tool, decide on the rules for your stages. When does someone get moved along? How do they get moved along? Why do they get moved along? Okay. What type of templates, what kind of campaigns are you going to be using? You don't have to use the ones that are pre-built and all of these tools and things. You can say, hey, I'm going to develop my own process. Same thing with SkySlope. SkySlope has an exact step-by-step process for you to go through. Do you want to add to that? You're like, hey, my lender requires something else, or make sure you go through that. That's what this process is for. Then next is track it all with a checklist, or use a spreadsheet, or use a CRM, or use a whiteboard, something to track everything. Then, just like I was pointing out, let's see here. Can I go back? In KV Core, you can know any given day, man, I got 300 people that are in my sphere. I haven't messaged them. Like, you can look and see that, man, I'm not taking care of this group of people. Or I have a lot of new leads, but no active leads. That means we need to spend some time converting these people to be active leads, right? So again, we want to plug any leaks. We want to document this entire process for ourselves so that we're not lost and overwhelmed when we start juggling 2, 3, 4, 5, 10. I think the most deals I've had like in contract at one time is about 10. And if I didn't have this, and I didn't have it all nailed down. It was a lot of late nights, and it was a lot of frustrating, stressed out calls, and operating on a lot of emotion instead of logic and systems and processes. So, yeah, you want to have nail this down. So that's the takeaway that I think is helpful. Any good business that wants to grow should do this. Okay. I know it's not sexy and exciting and fun. It's a boring thing to do. It's the admin process. It's the back end of our business, right? It's not the rah fun stuff. So is that helpful? Let me stop the sharing and we'll discuss any questions, any thoughts, any hallucinations, any concerns. I know everybody's probably drinking their eggnog and ready